The Wild West, a lawless land, harsh and unforgiving. Gunslingers ruled, outlaws ran wild, and sheriffs were as tough as the land itself. Life was cheap, and death was always near. But out of this chaos rose legends, men and women who lived by the gun. Fearsome and respected. They were the stuff of stories, their names whispered in the dark. Jesse James wasn't born a villain. He was a young man from Missouri, a state torn apart by the Civil War. Fighting for the South, he learned the harsh realities of war. But when the war ended, Jesse couldn't let go of the hatred. He turned to a life of crime, robbing banks and trains to avenge the South. With his gang, the Younger James Gang, Jesse pulled off daring heists, striking fear into the hearts of bankers and railroad barons. But even the bravest outlaw can make mistakes. A botched robbery in Northfield, Minnesota, turned the tide against Jesse. Fearful and paranoid, Jesse grew suspicious of everyone, even his own gang members. This distrust would ultimately lead to his downfall. The Ford brothers, two young outlaws, were offered a reward to kill Jesse. On a fateful day in 1882, they betrayed their leader, shooting him dead in his own home. The death of Jesse James shocked the nation. He was more than just a criminal. He was a symbol of the Wild West, a legend. His story, a mix of daring, violence, and betrayal, continues to captivate us today. Henry McCarty, or Billy the Kid as he was known, was a young man with a troubled past. Orphaned and always on the move, he grew up tough and wild. The Lincoln County War, a brutal fight between powerful cattle bosses, dragged Billy into the middle of the chaos. He joined forces with John Tunstall, a rancher targeted by corrupt officials. When Tunstall was murdered, Billy was furious. He vowed revenge and became an outlaw. Billy was a sharpshooter and a daring escape artist. He outwitted lawmen and slipped through their fingers time and again. But his luck couldn't last forever. In a fateful showdown with Sheriff Pat Garrett, Billy met his end. Though his life was short, Billy's legend lived on. He became a symbol of the Wild West, a fearless outlaw who stood up to the powerful. His story, a mix of violence and myth, continues to fascinate us today. John Wesley Hardin. The name alone sent shivers down the spines of lawmen and outlaws alike. A man with a hair-trigger temper and a deadly aim, he was a force to be reckoned with. Hardin grew up in a time of violence and lawlessness. He was a young man when he got into his first gunfight, and from that moment on, he was hooked. He was a natural with a gun, and he quickly gained a reputation as a deadly shot. Hardin was involved in countless gunfights and feuds. He was a feared outlaw, and his name was known far and wide. But even the toughest gunslinger can escape their fate. Hardin was eventually captured and sent to prison. Released years later, he tried to live a quiet life. But his past was always there, haunting him. In a tragic end to a violent life, he was gunned down in a saloon brawl. John Wesley Hardin's legacy is a dark one, a reminder of the wild and lawless days of the Old West. Cole Younger was a young boy when the Civil War tore his world apart. The loss of his father and the ruin of his home filled him with rage. He joined William Quantrill's Raiders, a band of Confederate rebels known for their brutal tactics. It was here that Cole learned to shoot and fight, becoming a deadly outlaw. After the war, Younger teamed up with the infamous James brothers, forming a gang that struck fear into the hearts of many. They robbed banks and trains, living a life of danger and excitement. But their luck ran out in Northfield, Minnesota. A botched robbery turned into a bloody shootout, and Cole was badly wounded. Caught and locked away, Cole spent years behind bars. He used this time to think about his past and dream of a different future. He became a voice for change, speaking out against violence and injustice. Released from prison, Cole dedicated himself to a new life. He traveled the country, sharing his story and warning others about the dangers of violence. He wanted to show people that it was never too late to change. Cole Younger, once a feared outlaw, became a symbol of hope and redemption. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker, was a different kind of outlaw. He wasn't just a wild-eyed gunslinger. He was a cool, calm, and collected leader, always planning his next move. He was a master of disguise, a smooth talker, and a brilliant strategist. He grew up on a ranch in Utah, learning the ways of the West. But the quiet life wasn't for him. He craved excitement, adventure, and a taste of the outlaw life. With his gang, the Wild Bunch, he pulled off some of the most daring robberies in American history. They were a band of brothers, loyal to each other and fearless in the face of danger. They robbed trains, banks, and stagecoaches, always one step ahead of the law. They were known for their daring escapes and their ability to disappear into thin air. But even the best outlaws can't outrun their past. The Wild Bunch eventually fled to South America, hoping to escape the long arm of the law. But their luck ran out. In a final shootout, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid met their end. The legend of Butch Cassidy lives on. He was a Robin Hood of the Wild West, a charming and charismatic outlaw who captured the hearts of the public. Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, better known as the Sundance Kid, was a daring outlaw with a penchant for adventure. He met Butch Cassidy in Wyoming and quickly became his partner in crime. Together, they formed the Wild Bunch, a gang of outlaws who pulled off some of the most audacious robberies in American history. Sundance was a sharp shooter and a fearless fighter, but he preferred to use his brains over his gun. He was a smart guy, always planning his next move. He and Butch Cassidy were a perfect team, always one step ahead of the law. They robbed trains, banks, and stagecoaches, always getting away clean. They were like ghosts, disappearing into thin air. But even the best outlaws can't outrun their past. The Wild Bunch had to run away to South America to hide from the cops. They tried to live a quiet life, but the thrill of the outlaw life was too strong. They went back to their old ways, robbing banks and trains in South America. Their luck finally ran out. In a big shootout with the cops in Bolivia, Sundance and Butch Cassidy were killed. Or were they? Some people think they escaped and lived a secret life. The mystery of their deaths keeps us guessing. The mystery surrounding their deaths continues to fascinate us today. Belle Starr, a wild woman with a heart of gold, was a force to be reckoned with. She grew up tough, her life shaped by the Civil War. Her brother's death and her family's struggles pushed her to the edge. She married a gambler and learned the tricks of the trade. Belle was no ordinary woman. She was smart, fearless, and always one step ahead of the law. She hung out with the biggest outlaws of the Wild West, like Jesse James. Together, they robbed trains, stole horses, and lived life on the edge. But Belle wasn't just a criminal. She was also a survivor. She used her charm and wit to talk her way out of trouble. She was always one step ahead, always playing the game. Her life was cut short, tragically and mysteriously. She was gunned down, leaving behind a legacy of mystery and intrigue. Belle Starr, the Bandit Queen, will forever be remembered as one of the most fascinating figures of the Wild West. Deacon Jim Miller, a man of God, or so he seemed. But behind his pious facade lurked a cold-blooded killer. He was a hired gun, a shadow in the night, taking out his targets with deadly precision. Miller was a master of disguise. He blended in with the crowd, a quiet, church-going man. But don't be fooled by his gentle appearance. He was a dangerous man, capable of great violence. He used a shotgun, a powerful weapon that could kill at a distance. He stalked his prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when he did, it was quick and deadly. But his luck ran out. A group of angry citizens caught up with him and brought him to justice. He was hanged, a fitting end for a man who had taken so many lives. Deacon Jim Miller was a dark figure in the history of the Wild West, a reminder that even the most pious can harbor a deadly secret. Sam Bass wasn't born a bad guy. He started out as a simple farmhand, just trying to make a living. But something inside him changed. He discovered a thrill, a rush, in a life of crime. With his gang, he pulled off some of the biggest heists in the Wild West. They robbed trains, stole money, and lived life on the edge. But they were reckless, often leaving money behind in their haste. The Texas Rangers were hot on their trail. They hunted Bass and his gang relentlessly, determined to bring them to justice. But Bass was a clever outlaw, always one step ahead of the law. He knew the land, he knew the people, and he knew how to survive. In the end, betrayal was Bass's downfall. A member of his gang turned him in, and the Rangers closed in. Bass was shot and killed, his life cut short. Sam Bass's story is a classic tale of the Wild West. It's a story of greed, violence, and redemption. It's a story that continues to fascinate us, even today. Curly Bill Brocious was a dangerous man, a feared outlaw with a quick trigger finger. He was a master marksman, said to be able to hit a dime at 100 paces. But he was also a ruthless killer, a man who didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. Curly Bill was a leader of the Cowboys, a gang of outlaws who terrorized the Arizona territory. They were a rough and tumble bunch, always looking for trouble. Curly Bill was at the heart of it all, a dangerous man with a short fuse. He had a rivalry with the Earp brothers, a family of lawmen who were trying to clean up Tombstone. The Earps and the Cowboys were always at odds, and their feud led to a deadly shootout at the OK Corral. Curly Bill was suspected of playing a role in the murder of Morgan Earp, Wyatt Earp's brother. This only fueled the fire between the two sides. Wyatt Earp vowed to bring Curly Bill to justice, and he eventually got his chance. In a final showdown, Curly Bill was gunned down. But even in death, his legend lives on. Some say he faked his death and escaped to Mexico. Others believe he was truly killed. Whatever the truth may be, Curly Bill remains one of the most notorious figures of the Wild West.
Don't miss out on our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and share this video with your friends.